Morning, we're big ideas today, and we're in section 5 exercises, chapter 5 review exercises, and we're in problem 5 exercise 5. Write a unit rate for the situation. 12 stunts in 4 movies. Well, we know a unit means one, and the rate means how often something has happened. So how often is this happening in one movie? So we have 12 stunts in 4 movies. We just needed to divide. The way that we show unit rate is we do it as a fraction. So we do 12 over 4. 4 goes into 12. How many times, people? You can do it. Problem number 7, or exercise 7, is identical to the problem we just did. The only thing different is that they've added another piece to it. A song has 28 beats in 4 seconds. And please make sure that you're working the problems with me so that you understand how to do it. You're not just watching and then copying my answer. Do the actual work. So 4 goes into 28 7 times. So 7 is our unit rate. There are 7 beats in each song for 1 second. So now how many, if there are 30 seconds? So now we're just going to take our 7 and we're going to multiply it by the 30. So you're going to take 7 times 30, and that will give you how many beats in 30 seconds. Okay, write the percent as a fraction or mixed number in simplest form. So we have 12%, and they're asking us to write it as a fraction. So 12% means 12 out of 100. So I write my 12 and I write it as 100. So now, I take my 12 over 100 and I divide it by 4, and that's going to give me 25 because we know there's 4 quarters in a dollar, or there's 25 cents is the easiest form for 100. And now we're going to divide our top number by the same number. So we divided this by 4. We're going to divide this by 4. 12 divided by 4 is going to give us 3. Both of these numbers were divided by 4. Divided by 4. Okay. At first glance, this looks identical to the last problem that we did, except for it looks like 8%. But when I look a little closer, it's not 8%. It's 0.8 or 0.8 of a percent. Now remember, percent means of 100, but this decimal changes it. So I have 100 and I have to add another 0, because in order to get that 8 to 8% and not 0.8, I would have to add a 0. So when I do that, I now have 8 over 1025. So now I can do the same thing. Can I divide this number by 4? Well, yeah. 4 goes into 8 2 times. And remember, we're just going to have our 0 here, but 4 goes into 1,000. Let's see. Let's pause this. When I do my 4 into 1,000, I end up with 250. Well, I can look at this and see that these are both still even numbers, so I know that that's not right. So I've not simplified yet. So 2 can go into 2 one time, and 2 can go into 250. Well, what's half of 25? Is 12 or 125? It would be 125. I can do the math too. I can actually do the division down here. 2 goes into 2 one time, and then 2 goes 4 times, and then 5 times, because that's going to be 10 left over. So 1 over 125 is our answer. When you think of math as all being related, this makes sense. If in order to take a fraction, excuse me, a percentage and make it into a fraction, I have to put it over 100, then I need to get this back out of that percent, or that that fraction, and put it back into a decimal or into a percent. So hold on for a second. We've got 43 over 20. So think of hundreds. Before, we're trying to reduce and we're trying to get rid of the 100. Now we need to get the 100 back. So how do we get from 25 to 100? We multiply it. This time, instead of dividing it by 4, we're going to multiply it by 4. So that means we have to multiply the 43 also by 4, and that's going to give us our answer. So we take our 43 and we multiply it by 4. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 1 is 17, and our answer is 172. Here's one of those easy peasy. You go to the store and they're selling something for $80 and they took 40% off of it. You want to know what you'd actually pay, which would be the other 60% of the 100. So we've got 60% of 80. Remember, we're not going to multiply it by percent. We're going to multiply it by its decimal form, which would be 0.60. And this is my multiplication, and this is my decimal. So we add my two zeros, and 6 times 8 is 48. And now I just got to move my 1, 2 zeros, my 2 decimal places, and my answer is going to be 48. Now there's some markup. 150% of 48. What would we do? Well, let's take a look. Now remember, we need to change this decimal into this percent into a decimal. So we need to get rid of that. We need to move over 2 times. So now we're going to multiply this times 1.5. Okay? And there's our multiplication. So now we've got 5 times 8 is going to give us 40. Oops. And 5 times 4 is going to give us 20 plus 4 is 24. And then we throw a 0 down 1 times, and that's going to give us 48. And then we just add these two together. And 0 plus 0 is going to give us, 0. I don't have enough room on this little thing. Let's see if I can move it. I was able to move it. So 4 plus 8 is 12. And 4, 6, 7. So now we have to move our decimal place 1 point. And our answer is going to give us 72. So 150% of 48 would be 72, which would make sense because it needs to be bigger than 48. And it would be, another way we could have done it, it would be 100% of 48 would have been 48. And then the 50% would be half of the 48, which would be 24. And when we add those two numbers together, we're going to end up at 72. So either way you want to do it, whichever is best for you, you go for it. Okay, find the whole. 140% of blank is 56. Now remember, this problem is a little bit differently because first of all, I gave you a couple clues. One is they said find the whole. So we know that the whole is not 56. 56 is the part. We also know that we're looking for x. We want to know this 140% is of x. Okay, so we also need to think of this as a percentage. In order to work it, we need to work it as a decimal. In order to change that 1.4 to a decimal, we have to move this over 1, 2 places in order to get rid of the percentage and turn it into a decimal. Now we're going to take our decimal, our 1.4, and we're going to divide it into the 56. Okay? So now when we do this, we can't divide a decimal. We have to change this to a whole number. So I'm going to move this over 1, which means I have to move this over 1. And here's my decimal. And the first thing I do is I throw my decimal up there. So now I'm dividing 14 into 560. So 14 can't go into 5, but it can go into 56, and it can go in there 4 times. And it's actually going to equal 56. Because 4 times 4 is 16, carry the 1. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So now 14 can't go into 0, so I put a 0. And my answer is, what is the number that is, when you multiply it back out, it would be 140% of 40 is going to equal 56. So if we were to multiply 40 times 140, we would get 56 as our answer. So our next question says this: complete the statement, round to the nearest hundredth if necessary. So we have 9.2 inches equals, somewhat equals. This is this is an approximate equal sign. It's not an actual equal sign. Somewhere, because they're rounding, somewhere to this many centimeters. So the first thing we have to know is how many inches are in a centimeter or how many centimeters are in an inch. So we're going to look at our formula. Remember, there's always going to be a formula. And we learned that every inch is going to be 2.54 centimeters. This is why they have that thing that doesn't look exactly like an equal sign, because when they do this, we're going to round and it's not going to come out exactly. Okay, so in order to solve, we need to multiply 9 centimeters times 2.54. So 9 times 4 is going to give us 36. And 9 times 5 is 45, 46 for 7, 48. And 9 times 2 is 18. Plus 4 is going to give us 22. And then we have to move over 2 spaces for our decimal. And this is my bad because of the fact that sometimes when I'm doing stuff, I'm flipping back and forth. I can't pull it in here, and so I can't copy and paste it. So I'm making a little bit of a mistake. This wasn't 9, it was 9.2. So I'm now going to take my 2.54 and I'm going to multiply that by 2. And that's going to give me 8 and 10. And 2 times 2 is going to give me 4 plus 1 is 5. I got to move this over 2 decimals. So now I'm going to add this over here. When we round up, it comes out to 2337. Holy moly, we are at 10, 11 minutes. Woohoo! Have a great day, guys.